contract for the World Championship match at King and Queen of the Ring is signed, but is it a title? The title, Queen of the Ring and King of the Ring enters the semi-final stage next week as the quarterfinal stages are now complete. And the mysterious QR code returns asking if you would like to meet him. We'll break that down and more on the Hitting the Turnbuckle channel on the Smackdown review show. Now, we've already mentioned King and Queen of the Ring. Those semi-finals are now set this week on Smackdown. Bianca Belair and Tiffany Stratton kicked off the show in a really good, as you can imagine, back and forth women's encounter. Tiffany Stratton proves that she could hang with the best of them on SmackDown, even though there was a bit of a there was a little bit of dissension as to whether this match would even happen. There was an interesting video that Tiffany posted on socials this week, which we're not going to get into. And there was a huge rumor that Bianca Belair was pregnant, which proved not to be the case. I think that had something to do with Montez Ford on social media and something that he had posted on his socials. But nevertheless, the match did happen. Bianca did wrestle. And not only did Bianca wrestle, Bianca won her match against Tiffany Stratton with, of course, the KOD. And she had an interview with Kathy Kelly afterwards. And that, funnily enough, she mentioned that she may have injured her knee. She's not here to make excuses. She shows up, she doesn't no show, and next week she will be winning the Queen of the Ring tournament. Now, don't forget, next week, SmackDown emanates from Saudi Arabia. So that could be on Friday night over here in the UK, which may mean an early SmackDown review. Not earlier, well, earlier as in it's going to be Friday and not on the early hours of Saturday morning like we're doing this one. But Bianca Belair qualifies and says she's going to win the Queen of the Ring tournament. Now, the other matches in this, LA Knight did have a bit of a backstage confrontation with Carmelo Hayes. Perhaps that's setting something up, assuming he didn't get through his King of the Ring match against Tama Tonga. Now, that match itself, again, was quite a bit of distraction in there from the bloodline in that particular match itself. Which, you're kind of anticipating. Tama Tonga did indeed pick up the victory, so he becomes the first semi-finalist on the men's side of the SmackDown bracket. Interestingly enough, though, Paul Heyman did ask Solo if he's spoken to the tribal chief again. Remember, last week, Solo had said that he had been in contact with Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns had given him authority to run the bloodline. Solo did answer that with always, wise man. So, question for the social media outlets is Solo Sikoa playing Paul Heyman? There's one for you guys to answer for me. For next week, we've had the Raw questions asked near enough, and we'll get to them on Raw. We'll get to the Cody Rhodes one that I asked last week as well, a bit later on today, or a bit later on this review, shall I say. Obviously, no surprises for me that Tama Tonga picked up the victory here with the running flatliner. Now he will go on. He's a semi-finalist next week. Who will he take on? He will take on the winner of Randy Orton and Carmelo Hayes, which we'll get to in a minute. But they did have, LA Knight did continue to argue with Carmelo Hayes at the end of the match, which really does make me think them two are heading onto a collision course, perhaps even at King of the Ring next week, assuming that Carmelo, of course, doesn't get the job done with Randy Orton. Now, the other women's match on the show was another Queen of the Ring quarterfinal match. They say second round, but it's technically quarterfinal. This pitted up Jade Cargill against Nia Jax in a heavy-hitting encounter. Jade Cargill was definitely coming on here in the WWE. You're definitely seeing a lot more improvement from her in the ring. Nia Jax did make a comment to Jade Cargill's daughter that her mum sucks, which probably didn't go down too well there. As I say, it was quite a hard-hitting encounter. However, Interestingly for me, because last week I was saying on this show that I believe that we were heading towards a Bianca Belair, Nia Jax Jade Cargill semi-final. And that was my belief. I said it should have been the final, but obviously the bracket doesn't work out that way. However, Jade Cargill gets herself disqualified because she hits Nia Jax or attacks her with the chair. And they keep on basically brawling, and all hell is breaking loose at this point, and they do get them separated. But Nia Jax has picked up the victory here, and she will go on to face Bianca Belair in the semi-finals of the Queen of the Ring tournament next week on SmackDown from Saudi Arabia, which is quite interesting because, again, I didn't think Nia would do it. I really thought that we were heading towards the the Bianca Belair Jade Cargill match, because that's pretty much a dream match, and I would have thought Saudi Arabia would have wanted that instead of having Nia Jax Bianca Belair. I would have thought that they would have wanted Jade Cargill Bianca Belair. I would have gone for that to be in the final, but obviously that is not happening, and we're now getting Nia Jax versus Bianca Belair next week on SmackDown. Now, the other match on this, the last match of the King and Queen of the Rings this week, pitted Randy Orton and Carmelo Hayes in the main event of SmackDown. Again, another quarterfinal match, which really, again, it showcased Randy Orton. It showcased Carmelo Hayes as definitely a star. They wouldn't be putting him in the ring with the likes of Randy Orton if they didn't think that he was a star. Basically on SmackDown on WWE, they had a great match, a really good, solid main event. That's for sure. I loved it. Randy Orton is Randy Orton, and Carmelo Hayes is an upstart who's looking to make waves in the WWE, and he's certainly doing that. One of the ones that they've really, we mentioned this about, hey, look, we mentioned this about when you're getting called up from NXT, they don't always do it right. But on this occasion, they have really got it right. And I think that that's really showing in the WWE that they're doing the right stuff. They're building him right. They're getting him right. And it's actually working out really, really good for them with Carmelo Hayes so far. Anyway, and obviously he's not necessarily won a lot of matches, but at the same time, he's put in such good showings, and he is very, very strong. Being booked very strong. Randy Orton, though, picks up the victory, cuts a hell of a promo about how the three most devastating words in wrestling are going to be crown King of the Ring. And he will go on next week to take on Tama Tonga of the Bloodline in the semi-finals. Are we still heading towards the Jey Uso Tama Tonga Bloodline Civil War final? I suppose we'll find out next week. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I am really looking forward to this. I feel as if we could be getting the Bloodline Civil War at King of the Ring. And is that going to then start to build somewhere? Like we said, Jimmy Uso's injured. Obviously Jimmy Uso is injured, so is he coming back? However, next week on Raw, or this week on Raw coming up, Jey Uso will take on the Wing General Gunter in the semi-final. So that's going to be a very interesting one. Io Sky will take on Lyra Valkyria. Is Bianca Belair going to get through and have to take on an old foe in Io Sky? And my favorite now is is Bianca Belair to win the Queen of the Ring, and I would then believe Tama Tonga would go on to be King of the Ring. That is my picks right now. Tama Tonga for the men's, Bianca Belair for the women's. Also on SmackDown, DIY picked up the victory over Iligo Del Fantasma. Obviously, DIY heading towards a showdown with A-Town Down Under, I believe, at the pay-per-view next week. It could be a good shout to get the titles off of A-Town Down Under and put them on what I would call a legitimate tag team to a degree. We know that they're single wrestlers, but they have been a tag team in the past. They've been a great tag team in the past. I'm not sold on A-Town Down Under. I mean, since they've been tag team champions, the WWE have done absolutely nothing with them, and it's not really worked for me. I don't believe that they should be tag team champions at all. And I think that I don't even know what to do with Grayson Waller or Austin Theory. We all know that ever since John Cena buried Austin Theory, he's gone, like, we always use the word falling off a cliff, and it really does seem that way, as if they've fallen off a cliff. And I suppose the next question that I'll ask is, has Austin Theory lost that? Ever since John Cena cooked him on the mic, has Austin Theory ever recovered from being cooked by John Cena? And he was cooked big time, uh, by Cena before their match at the WrestleMania that year. And I don't think he's recovered at all. And for some reason, just hasn't been the same for him in the WWE since then. Now, AJ Styles didn't have a match this week on SmackDown, but he's come off of some big, big losses. And he mentioned that next week he is going to find out what's next, because he's going to meet Nick Aldis in Saudi Arabia in his office next week. And we're going to find out a little bit more about what is coming up next for AJ Styles. Now, we mentioned the Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul contract signing. Now, the big part of this was that Cody Rhodes signed the contract. They had both belts up on the stage. Cody Rhodes signed his contract, signed his part of the contract. Logan Paul didn't sign his. He ripped up the contract and said that he never agreed to do title for title, and that the title for title match will not be happening. Cody Rhodes does not deserve the US Championship opportunity. It will only be for Cody Rhodes' title. Nick Aldis was getting angry. Cody told him to leave the ring. Logan Paul pulled out another contract and signed it, as did Cody Rhodes. I'm not sure Cody Rhodes has looked through the contract. So is there going to be another twist come King of the Ring or King and Queen of the Ring with that match? But the match is set. It's for Cody's championship only. So that really makes me, I think now they've made it kind of obvious that Cody will win the match. If it was for both titles, I think it left the intrigue, although I said it does scream a DQ. It did leave some intrigue there. Now that it's for Cody's championship, I really don't think Cody Rhodes is dropping that title at the King or Queen of the Ring tournament. Now, incidentally enough, I did ask last week, does WWE know how to book Cody as champion? And I gave you two options. One was whoa, and the other one was no. The winner for that was 70% of the vote was no. You guys don't believe the WWE know how to book Cody Rhodes as world champion, which is pretty much on the lines of what I was saying. I don't think they have a plan for him going forward, unless it kind of goes back to the bloodline chasing him at some point, which we do believe will probably happen. Maybe Solo Sikoa, maybe Tama Tonga, should he win King of the Ring. We don't know if King of the Ring is going to get a title winners of King of the Ring, if they're going to get title shots or not. We'll have to wait and see. But interestingly enough, you agreed with me that Cody Rhodes, they don't know how to book him as champion. The other question I'm going to ask actually is Cody Rhodes a better chaser than champion? That is the question. Is he a better one when he's trying to finish the story other than when he's finished the story? So that is an interesting one. That could cause a few rumblings on social media for for this one next week, before we hit record on a SmackDown Low Down next weekend, or next Friday even, potentially, if it's live. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, is Cody Rhodes a better chaser than he is champion? There's a big question for you. Now, not necessarily the final bit, but the final bit of SmackDown we're going to discuss, the mysterious QR code returns. It had a picture of a boy in the middle. It was loads of stick people either side, and it was a computer / sort of Stephen Hawking style saying, "He is nobody, he is all of us." And that was about a minute of that. And then it cut to this scrambly TV, and it's like, would you like to meet him? And there was this figure behind it. Looked a lot like a combination of the Fiend and Uncle Howdy. And if you saw the Twitch stream on Thursday, that was like a therapist session as well. That went on for an hour on Twitch. With the therapist session. It was the therapist that was reported missing in the news clipping that we saw on the other QR code. It's a very compelling set of events. The QR codes have been great. Uncle Howdy will surely be debuting. And that was another question that I did ask actually on the Raw report this week. I did ask you guys, when would Uncle Howdy be debuting? I asked if it was going to be on a Raw, on a Smackdown, or on a PLE. And we've got that vote come in that 75% of you, no, sorry, 10% of you said it was going to be on a Raw, 15% of you said it was going to be on a Smackdown, and a whopping 75% of you said it was going to be on a PLE, which I absolutely agree with. I believe it could well happen next weekend as we head towards Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We could see at least the start of this faction. You can call it the White Six, you can call it Uncle Howdy's faction, whatever you want to call it. But again, I suppose another question I want to ask you guys is what's the word? What was the word I was going to use? Yeah, the QR codes and all of that. Is that going to be better than the actual review? So is the build going to be better than the reveal of Uncle Howdy? There's a question to pose you guys as we move into next week's show. We will have that for you. We'll have obviously the Smackdown Low Down will be recorded. It was a very eventful episode of Smackdown, to say the least. Very, very enjoyable. 4 questions to come out of it. I'm looking forward to asking you guys ahead of the shows next week. We'll be back. Speaking of shows, we'll be back with an AEW catch up. I think Gary Joe will be joining us for that again. We've got an interview with Warhorse. We do have an interview with British standout Harry McDonald ahead of his RCWA Elite One title defense coming up next month against Tommy Lawrence. And of course, we'll be back with all review shows again next week as well, with the Crockett Cup continuing on NWA. We'll have the semi-finals of the Queen of the Ring and 2 big pay-per-views next week, the King and Queen of the Ring, as well as Double or Nothing next week at AEW will present that. So 2 big pay-per-views, review shows and interviews dropping next week on the channel. Keep it locked to socials at HTT Buckle on X and Hitting the Turnbuckle Podcast and all other social media outlets. Until then, everybody, buckle down and stay safe.